Someone's rightly said that for every great film comes 5 others trying to replicate its success. That is exactly what happened after the 1987 Robocop was released. Do you remember that iconic 1987 movie poster? Well, I do. It nailed it with the tagline, "Part man, part machine, all cop." Sounds heavy. Replete with action, explosions, takedowns, and unapologetic gore, it had it all. Sure, it was right in your face, but that made it quintessentially 80s. When Robocop hit theaters, it earned nearly 4 times its budget. Naturally, imitators swarmed in with the hope of riding the wave of its success and tried repeating the same formula. Hollywood loves ripping off the thing that worked last time. Hence, in this video, we check out 20 Robocop ripoffs. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, well, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Hardware, 1990. In a world scarred by nuclear devastation, Earth was desolate and a wasteland of ruin and decay. Nomad was a desert scavenger who stumbled upon a fascinating find, a severed robotic head. He traded it to Moses Baxter, a battle-hardened Marine who had recently returned from off-world duty. Moses planned on gifting the head to his artist girlfriend, Jill Grakowski, who used machines for her unconventional sculptures. But what Mo didn't know was that seemingly harmless head had a dark secret. The robotic head was Mark 13, a self-repairing prototype from a long-abandoned military experiment, and its sole purpose was to kill. It was initially designed to curb the population explosion through brutal, indiscriminate murder. So, all hell broke loose when the head suddenly sprung to life. No kidding! The movie transformed into a cat-and-mouse chase. With the Mark 13 now fully operational, it began stalking Jill within her own building and left a trail of bodies in its wake. Moses realized the danger, but a little too late. Jill was the cyborg's prime target. Somewhere along the movie, Hardware feels like it's borrowed a page or two from Robocup. Dark alleys, corruption everywhere. You get the gist. Both the movies had the same vibes. A crumbling society and a future where everything was messed up. Coincidence? Maybe. Robocop, aka Alex Murphy, began as an average cop, but was gunned down and rebuilt as a cyborg to clean up the mean streets. Mark 13 from Hardware was a military robot designed to kill, and kill some more. Both stories were all about unstoppable machines, eerily similar. Robocop warned us of corporate greed and the loss of human identity to tech, while Hardware stepped it up and showed us a military-industrial nightmare. Yeah, we get the message loud and clear. Don't play God with tech. It bites back. So both Robocop and Hardware tread the same themes, but Hardware deals with more blood, sweat, and existential dread. Yeah, pretty much 2 sides of the same dystopian coin.
The built-in transmitter inside your mask allows for two-way...
The Demolitionist, 1995. The movie opens with the criminals, Mad Dog Byrne and his not-so-little brother Henry, apprehended and sentenced to death by an electric chair. The only one who could save them was Mayor Eleanor, but she was in no mood to spare the Byrne brothers. On the day of the execution, Mad Dog's right-hand man, disguised as a prison guard, turned on the executioner and freed the brothers. While Mad Dog slipped away, the same couldn't be said about his dear brother, who electrocuted himself and died. Now, Mad Dog was on the loose and embittered by his brother's death. He swore vengeance against the mayor, and City Hall was his target. With Mad Dog back to ruling the criminal underworld, 2 detectives, Alyssa and Dan, infiltrate his gang, determined to take him down. But their covers were blown when Mad Dog was tipped off by a mole in his group. It didn't take long for the crime lord to zero in on the new girl. He captured them both and tortured them, which left Dan in a coma and Alyssa on the brink of death. But salvation comes in an unexpected form. Dr. Crowley, an unquestionably brilliant scientist with a blurry sense of right and wrong, offered Alyssa a second chance, a cybernetic rebirth. Alyssa, no longer human, emerged from the brink, part woman, part machine. Dr. Crowley's Lazarus Project transformed her into a weapon, and she became the Demolitionist, a dark avenger with a vengeance who prowled the streets of the metro city and was on a mission to dismantle Mad Dog's empire. Certainly, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned or transformed. While The Demolitionist, in all its blue glory, because most of the scenes were blue-tinted, was a fun watch, it felt like a total rip-off of a man-turned-machine, Robocup. The only difference was our hero was now a heroine, just like Murphy, who began as a cop who bites the dust at the hands of criminals, but gets resurrected as a cyborg by a mega-corporation to clean up the mean streets. Our heroine of the movie, Alyssa, met the same fate. Different names, same deal. Dead cop plus high-tech resurrection equals crime-fighting machine. Both movies swim in the same tech and justice pool, and just like Murphy grappled with his torturous flashbacks, Alyssa struggled with holding onto her humanity and morals while being a walking weapon. What I really liked about The Demolitionist was the portrayal of the character of Alyssa. Although part machine, and rather a deadly one at that too, she was tough and all superhuman, but not invincible. In terms of style, Robocop set the bar a little high with its dark humor and social commentary. The Demolitionist tries to capture this vibe. Police corruption, shady deals, it's all there. But this copy just feels a little lackluster and lacks the same depth. Think of it as Robocop light.
Dr. Brian, Wilson Institute of Hawk.
Rotor, 1987. In the 80s cinema, where shoulder pads and corny dialogues reigned supreme, a film became so gloriously terrible that it defied all logic. Its name was Rotor. Yeah, you heard that right. And no, it's not a typo, but a sci-fi spectacle that was equal parts cringeworthy and jaw-dropping. The story follows Barrett Calderon, a Dallas police captain with a name that screams retro cool and who moonlights as a computer scientist as well. He was on a mission to create the ultimate law enforcement machine, sort of like a Robocop knockoff dubbed Rotor, short for Robotic Officer of the Tactical Operations Research Reserve. But when Calderon's boss and some political bigwigs wanted results yesterday, Calderon quit. Some people just don't work well under pressure, so they hand the project over to a bunch of bumbling incompetents. Because, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. Because when these well-meaning but clueless folks accidentally turned the switch on, it unleashed a cybernetic nightmare. Rotor awakened, and this metallic threat had a zero-tolerance policy for even the tiniest infractions. Jaywalkers, litterbugs, overdue library books. Rotor was on every case. No questions asked, just plain justice. Terminator style. So, Calderon was dragged back into the chaos to face his own creation. It was man versus machine. Can Calderon outwit his metallic Frankenstein? But my question remains, who seriously thought that this was a good idea? Now, I know what you're thinking. Robocop came out in 1987, and Rotor came out the same year. I'm not saying anything, but you can certainly put two and two together. Even Rotor's poster looks eerily similar to the Mad Max poster. Coincidence? Maybe. You be the judge. While Robocop nailed it with Murphy's transformation from a cop into the iconic Robocup, Rotor was a budget-friendly bin metal skeleton. Think dollar store Robocup. And no, I'm not being harsh. I love me some bad films. A laugh here, a chuckle there. You know, the movies that are so bad it's good. Yeah, Rotor wasn't one of them. It's a train wreck from fade in to fade out and just keeps spiraling down the drain. Rotor's equivalent to translating Shakespeare into emoji and back. You understand me? I think we should play this movie in a film school as a lesson titled How Not to Make a Movie. It's so awful, period. Robo Vampire, 1988. Robo Vampire was a movie that was part Robocop, part Chinese hopping vampires. So, when an American heroin smuggler in Southeast Asia had frequent run-ins with Tom, the anti-drug agent, and his team, he hired a Taoist priest to train vampires. Yeah, you heard that right. Not only that, but Chinese hopping vampire. No, I'm not making it up. Tom and his crew get killed in their first encounter with these immortal bloodsuckers. But don't worry, there was no emotional mourning here. Instead, Tom's commanders decide to repurpose his corpse for android experiments. Voila! Robo Warrior was born and ready to keep fighting for the good. However, it gets crazier. To counter the Robo Warrior, the Taoist priest raises a vampire beast. Or just imagine a vampire wearing a gorilla mask because, well, low budget. And if you have plans to watch the movie, I request you to watch it with closed captions to enjoy mystic whooshing and metallic thudding. Whenever I saw squelching sounds on the screen, I knew great things were happening. Suddenly, the movie's cut here, and we're introduced to a whole new storyline. Robo Warrior gets recruited to rescue a spy woman captured by gangsters and smugglers. Because why not add more chaos? The more, the merrier. And by cut, I mean there was an entire hour's worth of footage from a Thai film which released in 1984. And no, I still don't know what happened to the kidnapped woman. Still a mystery, my friend. Blatantly ripping off Robocop's plot where a cop is changed into part machine to combat crime, Robo Vampires throws in vampires for that extra layer of bizarreness and veers completely different in execution. Some call Robo Vampire the worst movie ever made. Others are convinced that it's a work of psychotic genius. Genius might be pushing it, but I'll give them this. It's absurdly captivating and at the same time makes no sense at all. There was no logic, no narrative. The costumes looked as if they were raided at the Halloween sale, because you could very well see the steel armor the Robo Vampire wore. All shiny and glittery was nothing more than padding. By the time the credits roll, you'll find yourself shouting, "What?" repeatedly, because I did. What did I just watch? What were those two storylines? What even happened in either of them? You'll either love it or hate it, but you surely won't forget it. Lady Battle Cop, 1990. Lady Battle Cop has certainly taken inspiration from Robocop, but instead of a male cop, it's a female tennis player who turns into a cyborg. The story follows Kaoru, once a tennis champion, while her fiancé, Naoya, was a scientist at the Neo-Tokyo National Laboratory. Everything seemed perfect in their world, but Tokyo faced a threat from a terrorist group called Team Phantom. This group was part of a bigger, evil organization known as the Cartel, which aimed to corrupt the entire country and eventually achieve world domination. One fine day, Kaoru and Naoya are caught in a deadly attack by Team Phantom in Naoya's lab. Both were nearly killed. 6 months later, their friend Saijo, a police detective, was still hunting down Phantom and the Cartel, led by the seemingly benevolent philanthropist Henry Ober. Saijo believed something fishy happened at the National Laboratory, but had no proof. As far as he knew, his friends died in the explosion. But Kaoru made her comeback, and it was nothing short of a shocker. She returned as Lady Battle Cop, part human, part machine, and it was all thanks to her fiancé, Naoya, who was working on a cybernetic suit of armor and slipped her in to save her life. The city rejoiced. Lady Battle Cop became their secret weapon against crime. But then came Amadeus, who was working for the cartel. He had psychic powers and could move objects with his mind. Yeah, including Lady Battle Cop. What came next was kinda predictable. Good guys fighting bad guys. You know the drill. There's no denying that Lady Battle Cop is undeniably similar to Robocop, a city on the edge of chaos where corruption oozes from every crevice. Sounds pretty familiar to Robocop. They share the theme that unchecked power, whether corporate or criminal, leads to societal decay, and only a strong, often technologically enhanced force can combat it. But Lady Battle Cop puts a completely different spin on the concept. Oh, and did I mention a song that's part motivational pep talk, part absurdity? Robocop never could match this. Sure, it's a B-movie, but you can practically smell the passion behind it. They took Robocop's blueprint and added glitter, and the result was an over-the-top Robocop knockoff, but an entertaining one. I Love Maria, 1988. So, it was the year 1988 when Hong Kong came out with its own version of Robocop, but in the form of an ass-kicking cyborg version named Maria. But don't be fooled by the title, because it's definitely not some sappy rom-com. Nah, this flick is all about killer robots, shady gangs, and a cyborg lady in a shiny metallic suit from head to toe with a face as cute as a button. The hero gang of Hong Kong was wreaking havoc with their robo-killers, Pioneers 1 and 2. While Pioneer 1 was your ordinary robot, Pioneer 2 was modeled on Maria, an important member of the thug gang. When Pioneer 2 takes a beating during a top-secret assassination mission, it's taken into custody by a curious high-tech weapons inventor named Curly, employed by the police. And so, he patched Maria up, secretly reprograms her, tweaks her circuits, and Maria 2.0 emerges. After the tampering, Maria 2.0 develops her unique heroic personality and has a change of heart, if we can say so. Together with Whiskey, the ex-gang member, TQ, the bumbling news cameraman, and Curly, they form an unlikely squad and stand against the hero gang. Think Avengers, but with more glitches and fewer capes. In fact, no capes. Yeah. I Love Maria sure borrows a few pages from Robocop, like the whole robot enforcer plot and Maria's shiny metallic exterior, but it deviates in a completely different direction. No copy-paste scenes or plot points here. Explosions, sparks, and a dash of blood. The movie had it all. In addition to her completely fascinating suit, Maria had her jet boots and extending fists, plus a hidden arsenal of missiles and guns. The effects were entertaining, most definitely not Oscar-worthy, but they added to the film's quirk. The movie had slapstick humor, action, and more leaning toward martial arts, which makes it more than just a foreign Robocop remake and a fairly cheesy watch. Cyborg Cop, 1993. The story has hints of Robocop, but if you're expecting a typical robot on the streets out there for justice every day and night, no, not happening. In fact, this Cyborg Cop is more like a sidekick, and the Cyborg Cop of the title is a supporting character. The story follows DEA agent Jack Ryan. No, not the Tom Clancy one who goes all in on a classic revenge mission in the Caribbean because his sibling was kidnapped and turned into a half-human, half-machine cyborg by the villain. Now, right off the bat, let me tell you that Cyborg Cop has all the ingredients of a B-movie in the making. Hero flexing muscles, a British villain doing the villain thing, locations pretending to be somewhere else. The special effects, well, let's just say they were not so special. Do we have explosions, nudity, and a script? Well, we missed that one. It's so terrible that it's a masterpiece of terribleness. But to compensate for the script, or lack of it, we're served with intense gore, a severed hand, a punched head, and some unexpected splatter. It's hilariously wrong in all the right ways. Digital Man, 1995. Digital Man was on screen for more than 15 minutes before you realize it was like every sci-fi action hybrid of the 1990s rolled into one. It was a mashup of elements from classics like Terminator and Robocop that we've seen countless times. A tall, brooding European guy as an unstoppable cyborg, Marines with giant cannons, and the line between human and android blurred. Digital Man had all the ingredients for a spectacular rip-off of Robocop and still missed the opportunity. The story kicked off with terrorists who had stolen the launch codes for 250 nuclear missiles. Their plan was to blackmail the government of a third world war and slip their way into a cozy life. But while the terrorists dreamt of a grand life and handsomely paid in exchange for the launch codes, the government had already set up the D1 robot, aka Digital Man. This sleek prototype not only neutralized the terrorists, also swiped the launch codes right from under their noses and stored them in his memory banks. But on his way back to base, Digital Man's spaceship crashed into a desert town in the southwest USA. A commando unit was then dispatched to retrieve the codes, which meant they had to take down this near-indestructible Digital Man. Here, things got a little trickier when the squad began suspecting each other of being robots. Were they all flesh and bone, or could some be silicon and circuits? Classic paranoia in the house. Digital Man was unquestionably inspired by Robocop's success and shared common themes: ethical dilemmas in creating super soldiers and the blurred boundary between humanity and technology. But Digital Man diverges and steers toward the digital frontier instead of Robocop's corporate dystopia. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Digital Man was entertaining, but it was also dumb and made me question my life choices. But that's a story for another time. The movie's CGI was plain pathetic. PlayStation 1 would have had better graphics. The weapons felt like spray-painted leaf blowers, and the robot deaths were straight out of a cartoon. I know, if Digital Man took itself seriously, we could dissect its flaws. But no, it was all about vibing with the movie and let the cool and chaotic parts wash over you. Android Cop, 2014. In the year of 2045, Los Angeles lay in ruins and was a toxic wasteland known as the Zone. Hammond was a decorated cop who walked through this desolate land alongside his partner, but when his partner died due to a malfunctioning gun, Hammond's distrust of all things mechanical deepened. Not long after losing his partner to this freak accident, Hammond was sent back into the Zone with a new team. This time, they were attacked by the Zone's street gangs until a figure clad in black armor appeared. This was Android Cop. Hammond's frustration peaked when he learned that Android Cop was to be his new partner. Together, they had to retrieve a runaway android lost in the lawless outer zones with the mayor's daughter's consciousness. So, basically, they had to locate a human mind trapped in a machine body. Piece of cake, right? Android Cop is a blatant bad rip-off of Robocop. It jumps from one action scene to the next and leaves no room to catch one's breath, but the direction and scripts are different stories altogether. The villains look like cardboard cutouts. The dialogue is cringeworthy. Oh, and yeah, there's no sign of a backstory, even if you try finding one. Because who needs that? Michael Jai White, who played Hammond, looked like he was controlling his giggles throughout the movie. I don't blame him. The gunfights are hilariously cheap. Hundreds of shots were fired, but only a handful hit anything. The movie's full of unfinished CGI disasters, and the apparent twist, I could see it coming a mile away.
Thank you. Hooray! Hooray! Thank you very much.
Cyber Chic, 1990. Dr. Von Colon, an eccentric scientist, has come up with his latest creation, a stunning cyborg called Cyber Chic. But Cyber Chic was not just a pretty face. When some street thugs crossed her path, they learned the hard way that she was not someone to be messed with. Then it dawned on Dr. Colon that his invention could also be used to clean the streets of criminals, and he believed he'd come up with the century's invention. Meanwhile, a man that goes with the name Harry claimed in the media that he'd planted bombs all over the city. Obviously, the press eats it up. So, Cyber Chic is tasked with stopping Hodgkins and his explosive antics. But that wasn't all. Quentin, the head of a shady criminal organization, wasn't too thrilled about her meddling in their business. Then there are the bikers who wanted her out of their way. Too many people after the Cyber Chic who just seemed to be minding her own business. Can the cyborg catch a breather? But here, the ultimate challenge for me was to make it to the end to see what happens. Mind you, it was a daunting task. Things we do for you guys. I may come off as harsh, but this movie was so horrendous on so many levels that it felt like a relentless attack on my common sense. The film tried to be goofy and aim for Robocop vibes, but instead of laughs, it was irritating on a totally different level. The protagonist, our lead actress, channeled the emotional range of a wooden plank. If I'd not known better, I would have thought that she might have been going for an Oscar in the most unconvincing robot category, and she might have just won. The supporting cast were no better, and their dry attempts at humor were more cringe than a chuckle. The runtime is 102 torturous minutes and was like watching a train wreck, but in slow, excruciating motion. In summary, this film was a monumental cinematic migraine, and the only way someone could go through it was if a gun was pointed at the head. Avoid this disaster. Your sanity will thank you, and you'll thank me later. Class of 1990. In a future where gang violence runs rampant, it's now the schools that have become battlegrounds, and these gang-controlled areas are called free fire zones. Kennedy High School, situated in the heart of a Seattle free fire zone, is a lawless ground with youth gang violence at its peak, where even the police fear interfering. So, the Department of Educational Defense stepped in a desperate attempt to reclaim these institutions. Dr. Robert Forrest came up with a body called Tactical Education Units, where human-like bots are programmed to teach history, chemistry, and math. Simply put, cyborg teachers are armed with AI and programmed to enforce discipline. Yeah, enforce. Think Mad Max, but in a classroom. When the bell rings, students aren't just learning algebra, they're learning survival at Kennedy High. Cody Culp, fresh out of jail, wants redemption, but the robotic teachers turn lethal and begin targeting undisciplined students. So, when Cody's brother Angel falls victim, his world shatters and he vows revenge. Along with the principal's daughter, Christy, Cody rallies rival gangs to take down the cyborg teachers and reclaim their school. Now, in this post-apocalyptic school where textbooks are replaced by bazookas, these rebellious kids are taking on the world and are armed to the teeth, and nobody bothers explaining where they got their arsenal. Pretty strange. There's no logic whatsoever. Instead, we have senseless killings, explosions, and a soundtrack that'd make your eardrums beg for mercy. I am not even kidding. Class of 1999 rips off Robocop, Mad Max, and the Terminator unabashedly, and the director didn't even put his heart into doing so. The plot is non-existent, and the whole movie exists solely for pyrotechnics and target practice. My only concern was if the police can't handle the chaos, why do students still show up? Now, if you can switch off your brain at the school gates, you might find the Class of 1999 amusingly absurd. But honestly, there are better B-movies out there. Save those 90 minutes for something less explosive, like untangling earphones. Shout out to the millennials here. Alien Terminator, 1988. Alien Terminator, also known as Top Line, might just leave you questioning your sanity. The movie follows Ted Angelo, a washed-up author who just happened to stumble through the Colombian jungle, fueled by booze and a dash of desperation. But the jungle wasn't just home to mosquitoes, it was also hiding gold in a cave. When Ted discusses the matter with his buddy Alonzo, he tells him that the gold was indeed Nazis. Yeah, your ears didn't ring, I did say Nazi gold. But soon, Alonzo dies during mysterious circumstances. Now, Ted sets out to uncover the truth behind his friend's death and also unearth the gold. But as luck would have it, what does he find alongside it? A UFO. Yeah, Ted seems to be in luck. But soon, Heinrich Holtzman, a Nazi war criminal, attacks poor Ted and tries to kill him. And you thought Raiders of Atlantis was legendary. Think again, provided this movie didn't already compromise your cerebral cortex. This is some next-level adventure. Anywho, Ted suspects the UFO snatched the precious loot from a shipload of Spanish kings. But suddenly, things take a disastrous turn for Ted when the US government sends assassins after Ted. And the KGB are also after our poor drunken hero. Don't ask me what or how. There are too many things going on in the movie by then. Just when you thought the plot couldn't get any stranger, a cyborg makes its entry because, well, the director wanted it to. Ted and his daughter June managed to escape on a boat, but it seems Ted woke up on the wrong side of the bed because his ex-wife Maureen, instead of a human, turned out to be a gooey, slime-drenched alien. My mind was blown by now. Alien Terminator could be called a mishmash of so many movies that defy all logic. A blend of Indiana Jones-style adventure, Nazi war criminals, hidden gold treasures, UFOs, Spanish kings, government cover-ups, Cold War intrigue, and yeah, even some poorly choreographed bullfighting. It was surely a recipe for a thrill ride, but this movie takes all those ingredients and turns them into a complete snooze fest. Visually, it was a disaster, as it looked like it was shot through a foggy lens. The special effects were laughable. The cherry on the cake was the cyborg on the screen. In fact, the makeup was so bad that it took Ted several minutes to realize, my god, he's a robot. Not exactly the Terminator we were hoping for. Now, with such an intriguing mix of elements, you'd at least get some entertainment value. No, the first 70 minutes drag on. Just when you were about to give up, the last 20 minutes throw in a desperate attempt to salvage it all. Too little, too late. Alien Terminator tries to be everything. Every working trend borrowed from other films, but ends up being nothing and is just plain bad. Robot Revolution, 2015. Robot Revolution tells the story of a not-so-distant future when people had chips in their heads. Yeah, those days are not far, in my view. So, here we meet Constable Hawkins from the Mobile Infantry Policewoman, who had an android partner named Argos, and together they patrolled New Jersey apartments. One day, they were sent to Tower Block Z83 to get intel on the terrorist group leader Damien Ra from a tenant named Vic Richmond. But chaos ensues when, instead of finding Ra, Hawkins and his robot buddy face Ra's henchmen, and bullets begin flying everywhere. And bullets flying can never be good for anyone, you see. They hit the nanobot cloud Vic was tinkering with in her apartment. Now these little nanobots infiltrated every machine in the building and turned them into hostile, malfunctioning nightmares. Even the humans weren't spared. They start acting like zombies, with blood oozing from their mouths and nostrils. Not a pretty sight. With no backup coming to the rescue, it's up to Hawkins and a robo friend to lead the survivors to safety through the maze of infected hallways. We see flickering lights, broken elevators, and a monstrous robot cleaner wobbling around like a giant insect. While Robot Revolution took inspiration from Robocup, it had a killer premise on its own, a nanotech swarm taking over machinery. But it fumbled in its execution. It had some really cool ideas of machines driving the story and a tight plot, with everything confined to a building, but what it lacked was some action, and we can blame that on its low budget. Robo War, 1988. A rip-off of Robocop's title, Robo War is about a group of commandos led by Major Murphy Black. He leads the crack team of mercenaries deep into the dark, unnamed jungle on a mission to rescue a medical center and track down the elusive Omega-1. While the details of their latter mission were classified, not much was known to them. You know, top secret kind of stuff. The team trudges through the thick foliage and our commandos stumble upon a gruesome sight of bodies torn apart by some savage beast. While they face guerrilla fighters like a piece of cake, they're soon picked, one by one, by a super hunter on the loose. And this super hunter, instead of a wild beast, turned out to be part human, part machine, and all trouble. Think of it as Robocop, but with a side of jungle warfare. Now, let's get real. This movie was an Italian knockoff of Robocop and Predator. Elite soldiers battling for survival. While it does sound intriguing, the execution fell flat on its face. Even if you're someone into 80s cheesy action, this one misses the bullseye by far. It's not even so bad it's good. The script and acting are terrible, and even the killer robot lacks charisma. What more could be said? Oh, while there are explosions and bullets, it lacks luster and isn't exactly heart-pounding. No suspense, no thrills. Plain disappointment. Imagine Robocop, but on a tight budget. Dropped into a jungle wearing a motorcycle helmet and a rubber jumpsuit. Yeah, not my vibe. Cyber Tracker, 1994. Set in the future of Los Angeles, where crime is uncontrolled and unchecked, and the judicial system seems more clogged than a New York subway during rush hour. So, Senator Dilley came up with a solution to institute the American computerized judicial system. Well, S.H.I.E.L.D., like an organization minus Earth-defending superheroes. This judicial system used invincible cyborgs called core trackers. And these bad boys weren't just fooling around, but executed the guilty on the spot. And by execute, I mean pulling the trigger right then and there. However, a rebel alliance called the Union for Human Rights, aka UHR, protested against Dilley's ideas. Eric Phillips was a Secret Service agent assigned to guard Senator Dilley. So, when Eric, a man with a conscience, witnessed the senator killing a UHR double agent in cold blood, Eric flees. Quite the irony, isn't it? Anyway, after Eric is on the run, Dilley uses her powers and positions to slap an armed and dangerous label on him. Suddenly, Eric becomes the most wanted man in town. Now, it's not only Dilley's security chief, Ross, on Eric's back, but also squads of nearly indestructible trackers on him. While on the run, Eric stumbled upon the UHR rebels, and they rallied to stop Dilley's cyborg killing machines. While Cyber Tracker is undoubtedly a shameless copycat of Robocop, let's cut it some slack. The budget was crappy, but the action scenes it delivered hit right in the feel. The fight sequences are worth praising and worth the time. It's a decent rip-off of Robocop, minus the heavy social commentary. Cyber Tracker never makes you believe it's a cinematic marvel, but it indeed serves some pure, fast-paced, fresh action.
See, Alex, you're not human. You're one of us.
Nemesis, 1992. It's the year 2027 in LA, a world where illegal androids are everywhere, and criminals amped up their bodies with cybernetic upgrades and turned themselves into walking weaponized tech. Alex Rain is an assassin and bounty hunter working for the LAPD, but one day while chasing down a lead, Alex is ambushed by the Red Army Hammerheads, a crew of cyborg freedom fighters. Their leader, Rosaria, nearly puts Alex 6 feet under, but he clings to his humanity because, hey, he was still 86.5% human, you see. Alex survives, but after some serious cybernetic upgrades and recovery, he hunts Rosaria down and kills her. Soon, Rosaria's ex-lover Jared, who is now an android, came knocking at Alex's door. Having had enough, Alex decides to quit the LAPD and goes freelance. But his past just won't let him go. After Alex is mortally wounded on one of his jobs, his old LAPD boss, Commissioner Farnsworth, hands him his final task: to find Jared and bring her back in 3 days because apparently she had vital security intel about a high-stakes summit between Japan and the US. The Commissioner also mentioned something along the lines that if Alex failed in doing so, the bomb inside his heart would go kaboom. Yeah, you heard it right. You must be wondering how a bomb ended up in Alex's heart. Well, remember the odd job where Alex was nearly killed? During that patch-up, Alex was on a ticking clock, literally, and if he fails, well, let's just say it won't be a happy ending. Alright, let me just come clean to you guys. Nemesis wasn't made for any Oscars, but it definitely had its own charm. It was surely not the kind of movie that'll leave you with deep thoughts or existential crises. No, it was all about one thing and one thing purely: action. While it took a leaf out of the Robocop booklet, where a cop is almost killed in the line of duty but comes back due to cybernetic reconstruction, I'm not saying Nemesis was one without a plot. No, it had a solid plot. One that could have worked in its favor. Important people are getting swapped out for cyborg replicants, probably because the evil cyborgs want to redecorate the world in their own image. But it was somewhere overshadowed by the amount of guns and explosions we see throughout the movie. Because obviously, who cares about the plot when you've got explosions left, right, and center, right? Everyone's in trench coats, shoulder pads, and hair so voluminous that it gets difficult to see past them after a point. Did I mention explosions and guns? Oops, yeah, I did. It's just too many guns and too many rounds of it. Now, don't watch Nemesis because it can neither enlighten you nor make you any smarter, but it could surely give you 95 minutes of sheer, unapologetic silliness. Prototype, 1992. It's a dystopian Los Angeles of 2057. Decades ago, the Omegan cyborgs were created to maintain order in the crumbling cities, but fate had other plans altogether. The Omegans, those half-human, half-machine, rewired their own programming and turned against their creators. In response to controlling the rebellious Omegans, prototypes were created and programmed to rid the world of them. It was like machine versus machine. Now, Dr. Alexis resurrects the prototype program once again and selects a test subject: Hawkins, a war-weary soldier confined to a wheelchair. The good doctor slipped Hawkins into a prototype suit, which turns him half man, half robotic machine, and all warrior. But the experiment spirals out of control, and Hawkins is no longer a man in a suit, but a deadly weapon programmed to obliterate the last surviving Omegan, Chandra, the woman he once loved. While the movie is a low-budget Robocop wannabe, it tries to dazzle us with computer animation. It feels like watching a slideshow on PowerPoint. Yeah, that's bland. The prototype even tries playing with the laws of physics. Hawkins was wheelchair-bound, yet somehow managed to exist in two places at once: his mundane chair and a futuristic body tube at the experimental lab. It's just modeled on so many levels. Apex, 1994. In the year 2073, a futuristic probe called Advanced Prototype Extermination Unit, aka Apex, accidentally crash lands in 1973 and brings a deadly virus. Soon, robotic sterilization units were sent on a mission to wipe out the threat. Meanwhile, scientist Nicholas Sinclair travels through a time portal, only to return to a post-apocalyptic 2073. He finds Earth in a mess, disease-ridden and overrun by Apex killer robots. His personal life, too, wasn't doing too well, as his wife was now a battle-hardened guerrilla fighter who no longer remembered him. Sure, the movie has a whiff of Robocup, but kudos to the time travel introduced in the film. While there are innumerable moments where you just go, huh? The techno-viruses and killer bots would certainly keep you busy. Apex had its heart in the right place, but it takes itself so seriously that it comes off goofy. Universal Soldier, 1992. In the heat of the Vietnam War, Luke Devereaux crosses paths with the bloodthirsty soldier Andrew Scott. Their violent clash ends in them killing each other, but fate has other plans. Or should I say, the government. The government stepped in and cryogenically froze their bodies and transformed them into android warriors called the Unisouls. Now, both Luke and Scott were part of an elite robot SWAT team. They were perfect, could regenerate, potently controlled, unlike humans. So, as they set out on their missions, Luke grappled with haunting flashbacks from his final moments in Vietnam. Scott, too, remembered his burning desire for revenge. Thrown in was a fearless but naive reporter, Veronica, who was determined to uncover the Unisoul's secret. Now, Luke must protect himself and Veronica from Scott, who's dead set on killing both of them. Not only that, he was also intent on leading the Universal Soldiers and leaving a trail of destruction behind him. You do have to give it that Universal Soldier doesn't hold back. It's a heady mix of 80s action flicks like Robocop, where cops/veterans come alive from the dead. There's over-the-top action, dark humor, and brutal combat, but the special effects are really special and hit you right in the gut. But let's be real, a rip-off with a genuine plot? Well, that might be a far-fetched dream. Science fiction takes a backseat as the movie is replete with cliché, including soldiers grappling with post-Vietnam stress disorder even before the war ends. It's hilariously ridiculous.
Isaac, Intuitive Synthetic Autonomous Assault Commando.
Cyborg, the ultimate weapon, 2008. In the world of secretive labs, a prototype soldier named Isaac, that's Intuitive Synthetic Autonomous Assault Commando, in case you were wondering, was born. He was trained to follow orders without question, but somehow grew a moral glitch. Well, let me put it simply, he had opinions. You see, cyborgs aren't supposed to have those, but Isaac defied the rules and escaped. Now, with his creator Simon Hart and a team of soldiers on his back, Isaac takes Deputy Lindsay hostage. To make matters worse, Lindsay's partner dies under mysterious circumstances, with Lindsay's gun planted as evidence by the partner's side. This was enough to get the entire state's police force on their trail. But Cyborg, the ultimate weapon, wasn't your typical action sci-fi. While it takes after Robocop, there's no Robocop-style POV here. I mean, no larger-than-life actions, guns and explosives every second, or Cyborg gracing the screen every second shot. Instead, Isaac and the deputy spend most of the time running, driving, and dodging trouble. Sure, there are fights, shootouts, and explosions, but Isaac isn't the typical super soldier killing machine you'd expect it to be. He shoots to wound, helps lost kids, and even is interested in learning about Jesus, and eats a jar of sugar. Marvelous verdict. So, there you have it. Robocop ripoffs from outrageously bad to amusingly entertaining. Cyborg cops, rogue androids, and futuristic law enforcement, each trying to capture Robocop's original vibes. Some nail it with their own unique twists, while others, well, let's just say they're more like rusty tin cans. But hey, that's part of the fun, right? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.